So happy to be here. I'm lucky enough to be able to speak to you about an interesting topic that it's one of those things that everybody knows it's there, but no one likes to talk about it. I hope that maybe I can provide some insights that will help you to understand and think about this problem. I hope so. I wanted to start with a quotation from an author, a United States author. She said, "Growth demands a temporary surrender of security." I think she was correct, but I'm not sure she was talking about maritime security, but I'm going to use it that way anyway. So I wanted to explain to you a little bit first what we are about. These are the things we do. And this is what we do on the cyber side. We're in other areas of risk management, of course. We're in the on the environmental side, on the security side, and a number of other, I think, key areas like TMSA. But we started to see about 4.5, 5 years ago now that cyber was going to be something important. And understanding how the vessel owners we serve approached new problems like this, we said, well, we better be ready. This is a new risk on the horizon. And that's what we did. So you will note on here that we are doing, of course, assessments, but cyber threat intelligence we'll come back and talk about a minute or two later. And some of the other things that you've heard about bit by bit in some of the presentations we had today. I want to say, first of all, why are we discussing, why are we discussing cyber risk? And if I have heard once, I have heard I don't know how many times, it's not a regulation. We don't need it because no one is going to tell us that we have to do it. It's not in the requirements anyplace. Well, it is. It is a regulation. It is in the ISM code, not by name necessarily, but by the fact that you are already required right now to, when you have identified a risk, establish safeguards. So would you agree at this stage, after we've been talking about cyber again and again, that we've identified cyber as a real risk? Anybody disagree? Please, somebody disagree. I will tell Mr. Bolokas to fight with you. So if we agree that cyber is in fact a risk, then what we are going to do is that we are going to establish appropriate safeguards, period. There's no question about it. And, you know, as far as the United States is concerned, and of course we're located in the US, but also we're in London, we're in Greece, and we're in Italy, and a few other places. But at any rate, we have said in the US that the Rear Admiral who started the investigation on this has said essentially no additional regulations are required because the existing regulations already cover cyber risk. This is what he's referring to. And I want to talk to you about the U.S. posture on this so that you understand what's coming in the U.S. and then what you hopefully can do about it. Of course, we've got BIMCO. Now, this is guidelines. But BIMCO understands what's happening, and it isn't only BIMCO. Just look at CLIA, the Cruise Ship Association, ICS, Intercargo, Intertanko, etc. Everyone has at least this time banded together and said, this risk is real. How are we going to face it? What BIMCO has come up with are two things in particular. They've recognized that most shipping companies, not all, but most shipping companies are going to need external assistance. And that assistance is going to be, like in other areas, let's say before, during, and after. You can say it in a more sophisticated way, but before a cyber incident, during a cyber incident, and after a cyber incident. And you see the forensic analysis and cleanup. This isn't something that your IT guy can do. He may be fantastically talented, but I bet you that you can't produce an IT guy that can actually do this type of forensic analysis, unless I'm quite surprised. That happens. So what else do they say in the BIMCO guidelines? Well, it's simple, and if this is not resonating with you, I'm going to tell you why it ought to be. Establish a team. Does this sound familiar? That team needs to be established to take the appropriate actions It's got to be capable. In other words, not the guys that you know around the corner, not the guy you trust and like very well who had a graduate degree in IT. He may be good, but don't assume he is. This is a capability-driven requirement. You've got to have capabilities. That team has to be identified in your plan. Do you have a plan? Okay. Some of you may have begun to think about a plan. We're going to talk a bit more about it. Here's what the Coast Guard is trying to tell you. How many of you really realize that there right now, today, are reporting requirements by the U.S. Coast Guard for a cyber incident? These are reporting requirements, not suggestions. So you need right now, if you're trading to the U.S. and you experience an incident on your vessel, or an incident that will affect your vessel, a reasonable chance of risk, a threatened incident. For example, you've had one in the office and you're not sure whether it has gotten to your vessel or not. There is a reporting requirement now. Now, I'd just like to ask you for a moment, if you have reported an incident, particularly a little serious incident, do you think the Coast Guard says, thank you so much, let us know when you have it cleaned up? Probably not. Probably you're going to see them after you've reported, and they're going to be asking some questions of you. We want you to be aware of this because there is a bit of an attitude that until a regulation is passed somehow, some way, we don't really need to do anything. We don't agree with that. We think it's now. I wanted to give you a little insight based on a client of ours who we've been serving on the assessment side, and they're basically through the assessment. This is a significant owner. This is not a very small company. It's a significant owner who has had a significant breach. This is an internal quotation out of an email. Of course, it's not attributed. He says, it gets even better. Our network is up now, but the ERP is still locked down by malware, and the entire database appears to be corrupted. We are now going on 3 days without, and he swore a little bit, purchasing, maintenance, personnel, HR, all of those things are unavailable. The best part is that an unnamed internal guy watched the IT manager Googling how to remove malware. Now, that's nice. You can learn a lot on Google. I mean, I learned to cook things on Google and YouTube, but perhaps that's not what you want to be doing on the day you've just had a significant breach or 3 days later. So, then he says, free removal tool from the internet. Apparently, it didn't work. We don't want you to do that. So what do we want to do? Before an attack occurs, assess. I've been here a few times. There were a few people who came up to me and said, are you going to talk about assessment again? The good news is no. You should already know it. I've been here before. I've made you sort of agonize over what should we do, what kind of assessment, who should we use. But assess, please assess. How many of you have had assessments, if you're willing to tell me? Oh, boy. I don't know. I don't see too many hands up. Assess, plan. What are you assessing for, by the way? You're assessing basically to determine where you are in the cyber capability graph. How cyber secure are you? How capable are you? How mature are you? Then you need to plan. Now, that plan has to be a real plan based on your real vessels, on your real enterprise, your business, based on your real operating systems and your IT systems, the real ones, IT and OT. Training? Oh, we had awareness training. Is that all you need? No, awareness training is great, but it is a starting point. And then, does the plan you have on cyber, if you've written one, does it really work with the other plans that you're already using for your business? Now, some people say, well, what other plans? I would suggest that maybe if you have a disaster plan, a data loss prevention plan, or a business continuity plan, which may be the most important of all in this particular case, that the plan is actually integrated. Now, I want to go fast because I want to tell you what to do, ask yourselves these questions. Who will be there in the middle of the night when this breach occurs? Who will cover our assets? Who will speak for our company? Have we appropriately transferred our cyber risk? In other words, have we got the right insurance for the right reasons? These are some questions that go along with that you can ask in due time, or your risk manager internally can ask. We want to give you a solution set. Now, this solution set is not going to be fully, let's say, baked for you until you've done these other things that we've suggested. But a solution set that we think is going to work for the United States will start to look suspiciously similar to other things you've encountered in the past. We're suggesting you essentially need a cyber QI. Now, don't get upset about the QI as a regulated requirement today. The QI has an association with the United States oil pollution and has lots of other requirements. But what we are using it as is an indicator that you need someone that can act on your behalf, who has been participating with you and is prepared to know your exact systems and your contingency plans. This guy has to be pre-contracted. And the other resources you need externally need to be pre-contracted. You cannot get to know them the day of the breach. Please come in and fix my stuff. Well, what stuff? Well, where do you have it? Well, where is the breach? Well, how are you set up? By the time the new expert learns that, yes, you may be up and running. I don't know how many days, though, or weeks. In a couple of companies' cases, months. Can I just go back for 1 second? Did you notice at the bottom here that you have operations, you have cyber incident response, communications, liaison, and finance? Someone has to act with and for you to coordinate this. Your business is moving your ships. You have to participate in this response with your emergency crisis team. That clock is wrong, isn't it? Okay. And so these are some of the elements. Because you may have, for example, a communications firm, which is very good, or an internal communications person, don't assume that that is going to cover you. This has to be an integrated response. So as a vessel owner, you have a vessel. The vessel and the owner have to interact on a crisis management perspective when an incident like this occurs. And the other stakeholders have to be brought in: legal, public relations, insurance, of course, and the port state and the local authorities have to be involved because they are threatened by the breach you've experienced, possibly, probably. There has to also be an independent cyber incident response organization, similar to an OSRO in the United States for trading. The OSRO is going to be the group that comes forward and does the actual work like a contractor, but within the plan, within the vessel owner's strategic way of approaching this. Doesn't look too different from a qualified individual on an oil spill, but there are some significant differences, including liability limitations, et cetera. These are types of organizations that we've showed you and types of processes that we've showed you before. We'd like to go over this with you in some more depth, but I think suffice it to say, it's time to start, it's time to get ready, it's time to set yourself up for this continuous improvement, and it's time to transfer your risk once you've done that by looking at what you do have covered and you can sustain yourself and what you cannot. And then you're going to look to a viable insurance company to provide the difference. I thank you so much for your time. I hope that we've at least elicited some questions and thoughts that we can hopefully answer a bit later. Thank you so much.